Our lab works on a small little creature called C. elegans, which is a little worm-like creature. And in fact, there's 4 other labs at the Queensland Brain Institute that use this organism to research. Why we use it is because it's a very simple organism where we can remove genes, add genes, manipulate genes very easily. And this allows us to tinker with the way a cell works and understand how the cell is working and how neurons work. And this is something that just simply can't be done in other organisms without a lot of time and money, and perhaps never at all. This simple little organism is used all around the world in research. There's around 1,000 different labs around the world that use this, and some major discoveries in biology have been made through this organism, and that's resulted in 3 different Nobel Prizes in the last 15 years. So it also goes to show that working in a very simple organism that's quite different to humans in many ways, but uses very similar fundamental biological processes, allows us to understand how nature works and how biology works, and therefore help to understand how diseases can be cured. So in our lab we study mitochondria, which are little structures inside cells that generate the energy for the cell. They burn the food we eat with the oxygen we breathe to generate chemical energy, and they have their own DNA. And this DNA is extremely important, but it mutates quite rapidly and is involved in lots of different diseases, and we're actually interested in understanding how the DNA maintains quality and how the DNA is passed on to future generations in a good state. So that's one of our primary objectives in our lab. Mitochondria are at the very fundamental levels of life, and without understanding that and the molecular processes that are happening inside of our cells, we'll never be able to understand what goes wrong during disease. And we'll never be able to fix what's going wrong during disease if we don't understand these fundamental principles. So our work is very fundamental science because we're not looking to specifically cure disease, but we're trying to understand a particular part of how we work. And it is inevitable that if we understand that, we'll be able to treat different diseases. There are many and wide-ranging diseases caused by mitochondrial dysfunction, such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, all types of cancers. And if we can understand how the mitochondria work and how they become dysfunctional, we'll be able to fix them. I believe one of the most interesting discoveries we've made is to understand how mitochondrial mutations are distributed in a body. We're made up of 10 trillion cells, and each of those cells has thousands of mitochondria that are powering them. And within those mitochondria, there are at least 2 to 10 genomes. So there's trillions upon trillions of mitochondrial genomes in our body, and not all of them contain mutations, only some of them contain mutations. And we've discovered that the distribution of these mutations is different depending on the type of cell we're looking at. And we've also discovered the mechanisms that determine this distribution, that allow some cells to accumulate mutations and other cells to remove mutations. So that's an important discovery that has implications in understanding mitochondrial-associated diseases and understanding why some diseases affect particular organs and not other organs in your body. The discoveries are important because, as I said, there are many different types of diseases that are now being associated with mitochondrial dysfunction and mitochondrial DNA mutations. Any age-related disease in general, including neurodegeneration, is now being linked to mitochondrial dysfunction. So if we can unlink the fundamental principles of how these mutations occur and how they distribute in the body, how they're removed from the body, we can then understand how to treat diseases. And as I said, it's a widespread ranging diseases. The other interesting point is that we do inherit our mitochondrial DNA from our mother, and mutations can be passed from one generation to the next. Some of the principles that we're finding in our lab help to understand how those mutations are filtered out before they get passed to the next generation, and perhaps what genes might be dysfunctional to allow mutations to pass to the next generation. So we're looking at both an individual as well as a multi-generational effect, and that's why our research is important. So because it's fundamental research, I think that's a very difficult question. It's hard to predict what type of impact this will have. It could be something quite major, but it's very hard to predict. We could imagine the research we're doing now helping to treat diseases, helping to prevent diseases and helping to prevent the transmission of diseases across generations. However, it's very unpredictable, and there may be really widespread implications that we just can't imagine. But that's the beauty of fundamental research, is just by contributing to the knowledge, someone else in the future will use that knowledge and translate it into something that's completely unpredictable and could be hugely beneficial to humans.